How's it going, everybody? It is Maddie here today, bringing you my final thoughts and just my overall beef with Dragon Age Inquisition. I apologize for saying that, and I hope you do respect my opinion because I respect yours. For example, I heard Total Biscuit say that you could see everything Skyrim has to offer in 10 hours, and naturally I would argue that point to death, but I respect his opinion. So I hope you can respect mine about a different game, and we can move on. Anyways, I have some beef with this game. And this is one of those videos where I just click record and I just talk about what comes to mind. So let's do this. Now, I want to express that, number one, I don't have any personal issues with BioWare. They created my favorite game to ever exist, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And I love that game to death. And I've heard they're working on a KOTOR 3, which has me hyped. Oh my god. And so, don't get me wrong on that part. I love Mass Effect. Dragon Age Origins was easily one of my top 10 games of the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation. So don't get me wrong with anything as if I have beef with BioWare. But I feel like they tried to do too much here and it hurt the overall product. Now, I've spent a lot of time with this game. I have about 60 hours put into it. And that's definitely some dedication, especially with my isolated PC issue where it just kept crashing on me during cutscenes and in conversations. That I kept coming back to this game. So I took to Twitter, first of all, and I said that I'd give this game a 7 out of 10. This is why I don't use numerical scores, because everyone's like, IGN gave it this, and Angry Joe gave it this, and it's just like, this is why I don't use numbers, and I use my opinion as a rating. And so, naturally, ladies and gentlemen, I said 7 out of 10, which is a good game, but that means that it has some issues and it's definitely not great. And I'm seeing this game get Game of the Month and it's up for Game of the Year, and I'm just like, I don't want this to be kind of what sets the standard of this was the best game of 2014. And overall 2014, in retrospect, there's only been like 3 games I can think of that I was like, wow, I really like this game and I can't wait to play more of this series or something. Or actually 4. And I'm saving that for a separate video in its own right. But anyways, basically, Dragon Age Inquisition, like I said, tries to do too much. Now, what do I mean by that? I feel like when you're doing side quests, you're running around and just doing these extra things, they just felt like busy work, and that was the best way of putting it. I've just taken the opinions of multiple reviewers and kind of put them in together in my own thoughts and really agreed that with Pro Jared's review, when he said that the side quest felt like busy work, that's the perfect way of putting it. There was no real context to it. It was collect X of this item and return it. Kill this enemy and come back to the person and tell them that they're dead. They didn't really have any effects on them. And that's not right because they were claiming this whole time like everything you do has an impact. And I don't expect virtually everything I do to have an impact. But when I spend like an hour, searching through all these tombs and collecting keys and solving puzzles, and I really don't have any effect on the world or something on my character for it to show just some XP and some influence in the game, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. It just felt like busy work, like I said, and I just didn't enjoy the side content. And this is what I mean by sacrificing quality for quantity. And I'm hating this trend in games, ladies and gentlemen. I would rather have BioWare have taken this game, combined it down to 30 hours max, and had meaningful side quests that each had like an impact and a very well told story. But instead, you're kind of stuck, because if you want to do some of the story missions, you have to be a certain level. So you have to do these side missions and explore these extra areas, which end up doing more busy work because they don't have interesting story arcs of their own. So you end up just trying to grind to level up to get back into the story. But once you get back into the story, you realize the plot's somewhat vague and not that interesting overall, even once you get grinding with it. And then you realize that, well, you just grinded for nothing, basically. And it concludes with a cliffhanger that's left there for expansions or DLC, which I am excited for, don't get me wrong. But I would have rather had the tale wrapped up and not kind of set up for a next chapter. It kind of chimes in on the whole cash-in thing, because you look at the multiplayer and how that's kind of just straight made for monetization. It just kind of overall upsets me, the entire product, and I just don't know. And it sucks because first I thought like hopefully Final Fantasy 15 would come out this year, and that was my most anticipated game. And as games got delayed and other games caught my attention and stuff, my list started to shift. Dragon Age Inquisition made its way to the top of my list, where easily my most anticipated game this year. So it really hurts me to say all this negative stuff about the game, but it just kind of scares me that, you know, it's being put up for Game of the Year and stuff when it's really not that spectacular of a game. It's a good game, like I said. It's a good game. Like, it has its pros. Like, its characters are awesome. That BioWare clearly hasn't lost their touch on character development. The romance scenes in this game, as you know, are funny and awesome, but also just developing romance with a character is a lot different and reminds me a lot of Persona. It's not like in old BioWare games where it's like, all right, you know, you hang out with this person after every main story mission and then you fuck her and then that's it. You know, it's actually meaningful. You hang out with them, you have emotional moments. But speaking of companions, I felt that that was one thing that was kind of missing. There are companion missions, don't get me wrong here. But after any quest I did, I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, I was trying to look for reasons to really engross myself in this game. I would talk to my teammates or my companions and try to initiate a side quest. And sometimes I did. For example, for this one mage I had in my party, we had to run around and kill Venatori agents. And so we're going ahead doing that. I go to 3 separate areas to kill all these agents, and I go back afterwards and I talk to him, and he acts like nothing happened. Naturally, I continue with the story, talk to him, no new side quests pop up. It just felt like there was no depth. There is a lot of dialogue in this game. The voice acting is done really well, but it's just the fact that, you know, in Mass Effect, for example, they take you to new planets or areas to kind of uncover a character's past. The best example was uncovering Jack's past in Mass Effect 2. I mean, that was like a companion quest done to perfection. It was emotional, it was awesome, it was intense, it was flashbacks and stuff. It was so cool. And you know, that type of stuff just isn't in Inquisition. There are moments, but it's usually with your romance partner, and that's about it. But yeah, there are companion quests, but there's not like the cutscenes in them. There's no real effect on them. But there are choices in this game, and they don't really, I don't want to say they're minor choices. They kind of affect what your army is, so to say, what it's made up of. And sometimes you see the impact of your choices, but overall, there's really no heavy, like, damn, I can't really choose here. It seems like they tried to make up for the lack of the story by really trying to actually fortify it more, and it seems like they stripped the choices of it so it was more of a linear fashion. And the choices in the game are kind of obvious, unless you want to royally fuck the entire world over. The choices are really obvious in this game, but it does offer some replayability in that way if you want to see what happens there. But in the terms of trophies and achievements, they don't really reward you in that fashion for going back and replaying them, like in Dragon Age Origins, for example. Or even Dragon Age 2, actually, with those choices. And that's how few choices there are. I felt in Dragon Age 2, there weren't as many choices. Now, in the terms of, you know, the Dragon Age list, how do I like it? Origins still sits at the top, untouched completely. Then Inquisition. Dragon Age 2 is obviously sitting at the bottom. Dragon Age 2 also isn't a bad game, but just compared to the others, it's just not that good. But those are my final thoughts on Dragon Age Inquisition. It's just an okay game. It's a good game. I don't know, I forced myself to finish this game because I put 50 hours into it, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to finish this thing because I don't want to have my time be wasted. So that's kind of just my overall thoughts on the game. I hope you guys respect my opinion because I respect yours, and I'm actually curious on your thoughts. Does anyone agree with me? Does anyone stand with me, or I'm out here alone just kind of being the hipster? I hope not. Anyways, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm very curious this time around. As always, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.